The term General Secretary is hard to define in the Church of the Brethren, a people who profess that all are ministers through the priesthood of all believers. Traditionally, we don't put our leaders on a pedestal. We may say that our General Secretary is the spokesperson for the Church or the ecumenical representative, but we don't normally think of that person as having supernatural powers. Instead, we give that person jobs, go overseas and give the brethren in far-off places our greetings, show the brethren in India or Haiti or the Dominican Republic that we support them, make speeches at big gatherings of the Church, figure out how to balance the budget for the primary program arm of the Church. In many ways, it's a thankless job. You're expected to say the right thing, but not get too preachy. Challenge members of the Church without making them too uncomfortable. And while you're at it, please use language that people from all points of view are comfortable hearing. It's been a challenging task, but one that Stan Noffsinger has successfully negotiated for 12 years. Stan took over at the annual conference in Boise, Idaho in 2003, just a few years after a major realignment in the Church marked by severe downsizing and slashing of the General Board budget. There was also a realignment of the agencies that relate to annual conference, friction between some elements of those agencies, even questions about where the Church was to be headquartered.
There were tensions between the agencies. The interagency forum was a difficult event, and I was told to put on my battle armor when I went to it. And the board said, you find a way to engage the different agencies with the board and to help the Church move forward.
Stan worked with the other agency heads to usher in a new era of collaboration among the agencies of the Church, through bylaw revisions that put agencies on each other's boards, and a working style characterized by an unpretentious personality. The end result has been increased cooperation and communication.
Your four main ministry units of the denomination are working hand in hand in dialogue, working in joint projects to the benefit of the members.
And gradually, even though the Church of the Brethren has followed the nationwide trend of downward giving to church denominations, the denominational organization found itself in a much stronger financial situation than in recent past.
His gifts in administration and business management, I think, really brought a sense of calm and stability for the organizational life of the denomination, and that was very helpful.
One of the difficult points of his tenure was the contentious debates over human sexuality in the late 2000s, which taxed his ability to relate to all voices in the Church, but he encouraged them to respect each other.
I think he's been a model for how we talk to one another, being vulnerable himself, while at the same time reminding us of the core of our foundation as a people of peace.
But if you ask Stan what his biggest challenge has been during his time as General Secretary, he'll tell you it's been helping the Church of the Brethren reaffirm its role as a peace church.
To me, this was a place of deficit of the Church, that we weren't in tune with what it meant to be a peace church. And so this was a very practical place to say we need to be stretching the Church to rethink and reimagine what it means in the 21st century to be a peace church. We have to be a people of nonviolence. We have to be a people of peace, and that has to be reflected in what we say and do.
So Stan found himself articulating that message both internally during gatherings of the Church and externally at ecumenical gatherings such as the National and World Councils of Churches, to the halls of government, and among overseas brethren. He found it a convincing message, but one that needed to be biblically based.
We took on that anything we do as a peace church really ought to emerge out of the gospel message, or it ought to come out of a biblical narrative that makes it clear that we need to be a voice for the voiceless. It's not peace for peace's sake. It is being nonviolent, radical, compassionate disciples being obedient to the call of Christ.
Some of Stan's passions around this work were related to the Brethren voice in the ecumenical and global community. He made some real strong contributions at the international level.
The Church of the Brethren's voice on peace and justice issues, through Stan's witness, has touched ecumenical partners.
You know, Jesus said to us that the peacemakers are the people who are blessed, and you are a real peacemaker. You have been that in the context of this organization's ministry and mission, and certainly for the Church of the Brethren.
From his perspective as Director of Global Missions, Jay Whitmire credits Stan with helping our sister church in Nigeria, EYN, shape its response to the horrible violence it's faced over the last 10 years.
No one would question today whether Nigerian EYN is a peace church. I mean, it's clearly a peace church, and it stands strong as a peace church, and I think Stan has really helped in their identity with that, as a voice for peace, and encouraged them to be a people of peace. It's really a testimony to the brethren that the Nigerian brethren have not taken up arms. It's actually amazing, to be honest. I think Stan has really been a force behind that and a push to that, and maintaining individual and personal relationships to echo that voice of peace.
Stan provided strong leadership and encouragement to the conferences of historic peace churches that were held in several parts of the world.
He brings our voice, our brethren voice for peace, with the understanding of bringing who Jesus is and who Jesus has called us to be as community. And to the point where at the last World Assembly in Korea, to be leading a session of the assembly, he has brought our voice again to the world stage.
In the process, Stan has earned a reputation for someone who can strike up a conversation with virtually anyone.
His ability to sit down with anybody, whether it's on an airplane. He so often tells me of trips that he takes, and you can't believe this person that I met on the airplane, whether it was a soldier, whether it was a lay person, whether it was a church person from another. I mean, they were strangers, but he ended up talking to them and becoming amazing friends in that short time, and just amazing experiences.
I think he'll be remembered for his deep caring about the world in which the Church of the Brethren lives, a world that God loves so much that he sent his son Jesus. And Stan's passion for that world is a kind of an echo of God's love for the world.
Stan's deep compassion for that world, especially those who are suffering, is often reflected in his voice, such as during this introduction to the Nigerian brethren who were attending National Youth Conference last year.
And finally, we are very, very grateful to have members of the Church of the Brethren.
Something he was often apologetic about. When he speaks in public, every once in a while the emotion gets him and the voice starts to crack or the tears start to come just a little bit. He said, "No, I wish I didn't do that." And I'd say, "Stan, we need to hear, we need to sense what you're really passionate about." And he's a very passionate leader, and I appreciate that about him.
So when it came time to raise funds for the Church of the Brethren in Nigeria, Stan didn't hesitate to challenge the church with the largest fundraising appeal in the church's history.
The stage was set for that by Stan's leadership and encouragement to say to the church, we can do this. We can take money out of reserves. We can challenge congregations to help our sisters and brothers in Nigeria who are in a time of deep need and crisis.
So how will Stan's term as General Secretary be remembered? One pastor from Pennsylvania had an idea.
He looked at me and he says, "You know, Stan, out our way, you've become the Peace General Secretary." And I said, "Good. I'm glad because I believe from my heart that that's what Jesus calls us to be agents of reconciliation. Ultimately, it is about reconciling people with God through Jesus and reconciling people with each other. That's peace building. That's peacemaking. And I do think that that is an attribute and a distinctive of this church that has to be at the forefront." So he looked at me and he goes, "Well, I'm not sure that I meant that as a compliment." And I says, "No, but I'm going to take it as a compliment." And it's one that I can walk away with saying that, if there's any voice that we've been able to have in the world and within this church, is that we are a people called by Christ to be a people of God's peace.
For more than 300 years, the message is one that brethren have been called to share with the world. Stan has answered that call, and we celebrate his service to the Church of the Brethren.